Hi, Josh here, and today I wanted to do a video blog about something that's been coming up quite a bit recently in discussions and with me at work actually, which is the topic of crashing a schedule and a few considerations that seem to need to have to be reemphasized essentially. So one of the things with any project schedule, that when you see it in a MS Project schedule or something like that, here's an example. One of the things that I think people tend to do when they're looking at it from a scheduling standpoint is they start looking at people like widgets. So you might have, software engineer 1, software engineer 2, software engineer 3, that type of thing. And so when I'm in discussion with some senior management about, timelines and getting things done and adding scope and things like that, sometimes they tend to have this assumption that we can just add people to the project and get it done quicker. And there's a couple problems with that. One is that sometimes things just take a certain amount of time, and regardless of how many people you throw at it, it's going to take just as long, if not longer. Another thing is that when you do throw new people onto a project that are not familiar with the technology or the systems that are being developed, then that can actually create a negative influence on your schedules, because here's what happens. First of all, the people who are coming to the project need to get acclimated to the systems that you're developing or whatever it is. And then the people who are currently on your project team who are performing well are going to have to essentially take some time out to get these other new people up to speed. And so that's one of the things that you got to watch out for whenever you talk about adding new staff to a schedule. And as you get closer and closer to milestones or releases, then it becomes even more problematic to try to add staff in there. So I've got a release coming up for one of my subsystems in a few months, and so at this point, when conversations come up to add new people so that we can add this new scope onto the release, I pretty much have to shut them down and say we can't do that. It just doesn't make sense to try to add somebody new at this point and still be able to add this extra scope and get the release out. It's just not going to work, even if it works out on paper. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in relation to this is just that again, that looking at people as widgets mentality, that you have a software engineer 1, 2, and 3, that there's just levels of software engineers, and that's kind of the basis of what you're looking at when you're looking at adding people to a project. Sometimes if you add the wrong person with the wrong skill set, the wrong background, that can also take your project in a negative direction. So just because you've got someone available doesn't mean that they're the right people to be added to your project. So just as a theoretical example, if I had the option to get somebody on my project today who isn't really quite the right fit for the type of work that I need done on the project, and the other option is there's someone else who's on a different project who's going to probably become available in about 2 to 3 weeks, and I can wait for them and they're perfect for the role, I would usually, in most cases, rather wait for the person who's perfect for the role, because maybe they'll be able to hit the ground running, they'll be able to apply that background knowledge that they have with the particular system. If you're working with legacy systems or something, maybe it's the person who was the original developer on a system. You really want them to get in there. So just some different things to keep in mind, and make sure that you don't look at your people like widgets in your project schedule.